Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive
Yeah.
into some fascinating history.
Mm.
Today, we're going to talk about colonialism in India,
Okay.
but through a really kind of a bizarre lens. Have you ever heard of a guy named Count Georges Varcher de Lapouge?
I have not.
Yeah, me neither. Until I started researching for this episode. So this guy was a French anthropologist
Okay.
in like the late 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
and he was obsessed with skulls.
Obsessed with schools.
Like literally. He thought you could judge a person's intelligence,
Huh.
their morality,
Yeah.
even their destiny, just by measuring their head.
Wow.
I know it sounds crazy, right?
That's pretty out there.
But this is where it gets interesting. His ideas about racial hierarchy,
Okay.
even though they were,
Yeah.
mainly aimed at European class structures.
Yeah.
They had this ripple effect all the way to India
Interesting.
during British colonial rule.
I see where we're going with this.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to dive into today.
So how did this skull-obsessed guy's ideas end up influencing colonialism in India?
Well, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
the British were already there.
Right, already occupying the country.
Exactly. And they were looking for ways
Yeah.
to justify their control
Yeah.
over India.
Yeah, make it seem legitimate somehow.
Right. So they saw Lapouge's theories,
Mm-hmm.
even though they were scientifically dubious, as a
Yeah.
convenient tool.
I see.
It was like giving them a scientific basis
Yeah.
to claim they were racially superior.
So they basically took this already questionable science
Right.
and twisted it to serve their own agenda.
Exactly. It's almost like
Yeah.
adding insult to injury,
And
right? They're already occupying the country.
Yeah.
And then they use these bogus theories
Yeah.
to make Indians feel inferior.
It's a classic example of how science can be misused to justify all sorts of terrible things.
Oh, okay, let's get into the specifics. How did they actually use these theories to control India?
Where it was a classic divide and conquer strategy.
Okay.
They took these pre-existing cultural differences in India, which, India is an incredibly diverse country with a rich history and many different cultures and languages.
Right.
And they blew these differences out of proportion.
It's like taking a group of friends
Hmm.
who have different hobbies and saying, see, you guys are too different to get along.
Yeah, creating artificial divisions
Yeah.
where there didn't need to be any.
And they did this because a united India could challenge their rule.
Exactly.
So they needed to keep people divided.
Keep them from banding together.
So it was like
Jake.
they created a fake pecking order.
Right. A hierarchy based on race.
And that hierarchy was designed to benefit them.
Of course.
Of course.
It was all about maintaining their power.
And it wasn't just
Hmm.
about creating divisions.
Mhm.
They also distorted Indian history
They rewrote the narrative
and misinterpreted cultural distinctions,
to fit their own agenda.
all under the guise of racial science.
It's really tragic when you think about it. You're living in India at this time. Your history, your culture, your identity, it's all being twisted and manipulated by a foreign power.
And it's not just history that was affected. This had real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
Lapouge's theories influenced social policies,
Education.
education.
Administration.
It's like these theories infected the very fabric of Indian society,
They reinforced caste distinctions.
which were already a complex issue,
Yeah, right.
but they made them even worse.
And they exacerbated regional divides.
It's a tragic example of how scientific racism can have lasting consequences.
It's incredible how these ideas that were debunked even back then still have this ripple effect today.
Yeah, it's a reminder that ideas have power, especially when they're used to justify systems of oppression.
But it's not all doom and gloom. The story doesn't end there.
That's right. India has been actively working to dismantle these imposed divisions.
There's a real movement to reclaim their narrative and foster unity.
Yeah, they're rewriting their story.
It's inspiring to see how they're pushing back against this colonial legacy.
So what can we learn from all of this? What does this mean for us today?
Well, I think it reminds us to be critical of the information we consume.
Especially when it comes to things like race and identity.
We need to be aware of how these concepts can be manipulated and distorted.
To serve someone else's agenda.
We need to question the narratives
Yeah.
that we've been told.
And be willing to challenge them.
Exactly.
So to recap, we started with this. Kind of obscure French anthropologist, obsessed with skulls.
Right.
His flawed theories were used by British colonialists to justify their rule in India.
And to sow division.
And they created a legacy
Yeah.
that India is still grappling with today.
But they're fighting back.
Exactly. They're reclaiming their history, their culture, their identity.
Which raises an interesting question. How can we use this understanding of historical manipulation to identify and dismantle similar systems of
Wow.
oppression that might exist in our own societies today.
That's a question for all of us to consider, I think. So that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you